Yes. Chair Rennie,
Present.
Vice Chair Harney,
Present.
Alternate Director Schmidt, Alternate Director Yulo, Director Abikova, Director Miller, Director Sinks,
Here.
Director Gibbons,
Here.
Director Bruins, Director Craig, and I will note that Director Griffith and Director Cortese are absent this evening.
Okay, thank you. So first on our first item usually on our agenda is verbal comments from anybody in the audience that would like to comment on things not on our agenda tonight. If you'd like to comment, there's speaker cards on the table over there, and you can hand them to one of the staff. We'll get them to us somehow. And so let me start. I have 2 speaker cards here. Let me make sure. One of them is agenda item 3, so I have one for just general item. So Curtis Wright, if you'd like to come and speak to us, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, y'all. As you might know, I was on the City Council of Montecito for 8 years, so I know quite a few of you. I am now in a solar company and very interested in the kind of thing you have. When you spec a solar project for somebody, you want to get to 90% instead of 100% because it's not worth it for them to have, even if they have the roof and the extra capacity, it's not worth for them to sell the energy back to PG&E. So assuming that your goal is to try to make the area greener, to be able to buy it back where people could put extra production on their roof or side and buy it back at least at cost, what it costs them to put it up, would give you a homegrown ability to buy power and benefit the homeowners as well. Thank you very much.
Is there any questions for the speaker? Director Miller.
We should just comment that rooftop solar was a big deal for many of us, and so I think we have probably very good policy because we'll buy your power back at retail, and at the end of the year, if we owe you more than $100, we'll actually write you a check.
Yeah, well, PG&E does that too, but they do it they charge 29 cents a watt and they pay you 2.9 cents a watt. So it's not worth it.
We have a better deal than that.
Okay.
But the whole world comes to an end anyway when they change the time of use to be peak hours from 5 to 9 in 2 years. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, look on our website because there is some information there, and you can send email because I think we actually have a better deal for rooftop solar customers than PG&E.
Well, I'm just saying is that's one reason that people like me will put more capacity on people's roofs. So it turns out to be an important way of us speccing the thing if that is well known.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any other general comment cards. Is there anybody else that wants to talk to us on an item not on the agenda? And let the clerk note that Director Griffith has joined us. Okay, so next on our list is the consent calendar. Would any member of the board like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, would any member of the audience like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, do I have a motion from the board? Director Gibbons, please.
Mr. Chair, I would move the consent calendar, item 1A through 1G.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, comments from anybody? No? Let's call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? That passes, what, 11-0 with 1 absent? All right, so moving on to our regular calendar, item 2, Executive Committee report. I was absent for the Executive Committee, so I'm going to ask our Vice Chair, who chaired the Executive Committee, to give us a brief update, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Board of Directors here. So we did have a meeting on February 22nd. There was a quorum that was met, and one of the first topic that we covered at that meeting was a discussion around our revenue versus expense, and our CEO provided an overview of the expense ratio versus obviously the revenue. Power supply, professional services, and personnel were a very, very small portion of our expenses. with power supply being 90.5% of that. And so we went into a discussion around what percentage of the accounts would be residential accounts versus commercial. 83% of our accounts will be residential at this point, and 17% will be commercial and industrial. However, when we look at the consumption rate, we see that it's flip-flop. The residents will consume about 19% of the total power, whereas the commercial and industrial clients will be consuming 81% of the power. We also had a discussion around the energy programs and looking at what consumer options were available. Had a discussion about the line loss of 6% and looked at what some of the different options were that we could provide our clients. Moving into the third discussion was related to whether or not we could speed up the rollout of the program. So there are many cities that are beginning their first phase of the rollout, and the question was, should we consider speeding up that rollout and offering the rollout to everyone in only 2 phases? That discussion is an important discussion to have. We've received feedback from some of the clients stating that there's confusion. How come I'm not in the first rollout? When will I get communication about my rollout? And so there was an analysis that was performed, and we'll have a report tonight about what our options are. And then finally, we had a final discussion about the different types of purchases that we need to resolve, whether it's type 1, type 2, or type 3 energy purchases. And again, we'll have a discussion about that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Harney. Very thorough report. Let the record also note that Director Cortese has joined us, and we have our full board. Let me give first any members of the Executive Committee that attended, would they like to add anything they felt was significant? Seeing none, is there any questions from any of the board about the Executive Committee report? Seeing none, I'll move on then. So to Item 3, CEO report. Mr. Habashi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
The first item that I want to report on is new hires, as I have been doing for the last few months. We've conducted the first round of interviews for the customer service representative. And we will be conducting the second round early next week. Should mention that there's something incorrect. Is it not working? How's that?
I don't think it's on.
How about now?
That's better.
All right. Great. So I'm going to start over. We conducted the first round of interviews for the customer service representative. We will be conducting the second round next week. I think there's something incorrect in my report. I was saying that we're going to be hiring 2 CSRs. We're actually hiring only 1. We are interviewing 2 people next week, but only 1 will be hired, because that's all what we have in the budget. Second item that I wanted to report, and also, by the way, today we started the first round of interviews for the power supply director. Tomorrow we will be doing an additional 4 people. We did 4 today. We're going to do 4 tomorrow. Then hopefully by next week or the week after, we'll do the second round of interviews for that position. And by the end of the month, we may be having a power supply director. Second item that I wanted to report on, actually, it's the next few items. Basically, you know that we've started already notifying customers of the fact that we're going to start serving in April. There are a number of exceptions that we are dealing with, and for each one of those exceptions, we are sending letters to all the customers in that exception. The first one you heard about last month. the people who signed up with the Smart Rate program. This program basically is a discount that customers that sign for it get during the 4 summer months, and in return for 15 days during the summer months when the demand is very high, PG&E raises the rate considerably between 2 and 7. And of course, if the customer wants to save money, they would going to need to reduce their consumption during those hours for those 15 days, and that eventually will render them some savings. We can't offer that program because it requires that you have access to real-time pricing. When we do ask PG&E for real-time pricing, they say you have to wait 36 to 48 hours. Obviously, you can't get real-time pricing a day or two later. So we can offer that program. We're going to find other programs eventually in the future to offer our customers that will be similar and hopefully will give them the same savings. The other exception that we have are the solar programs, or the NEM program, Net Energy Metering, and we already are offering a better program than the one that they are currently receiving from PG&E. We've notified all of them as to when they're going to be enrolled into our service, and the intent is to roll them in over a 12-month period in a way that they will realize the most savings that they currently have with PG&E before they get enrolled into our program.
Did they already get that letter?
Yeah, that letter has been sent.
I just picked up mine.
I got mine.
On the way over.
Got mine last week.
I should check the mailbox before I came.
And for the people on the Smart Rate, by the way, we've sent them all letters, all the ones that are in phase 1. The ones that are in phase 2, provided that you approve combining phase 3 and 2, will all receive that letter around the time when we start notifying them. And in the letter for the Smart Rate folks, we are letting them know what the situation is and giving them sufficient alert that they can, if they wish to do so, opt out and stay with that program with PG&E. The third exception that we have is some of our customers have services that are large commercial, but they also have accounts in the same service territory, in our service territory, that's also either small or medium. So it's likely, because we're doing the small, medium in the first phase and the large in the second phase, that they will be receiving a notification for the small and the medium accounts, but not for the large. So to avoid having them being confused by that, we send them a specific letter explaining what the situation is. And finally, the final exception that we have is an account that is being offered by PG&E for governmental facilities, and that account is called RESBCT. Please don't ask me what it stands for, but I think it has to do with the allowing some of the large accounts or the governmental accounts to generate power and also use that power to serve certain facilities within the service territory. I believe the situation at this point is limited to the County of Santa Clara. We are working with them on trying to find a way to be able to offer them the same thing and actually making it even a little bit better. And in that regard, we've sent them a letter saying that's what we're going to do. And in order for them to be able to put the program and for us to work with them on putting the program together, we need to pull just a few of the facilities, the accounts in the facilities in the County of Santa Clara, and enroll them in July. We got a request from the county folks to do that, and we are obliging. We will enroll those accounts in July once we put a rate together that will work similarly to that RESBCT that PG&E is offering. So these are all the exceptions that we have. And if we find any, we will always address them as fast as we possibly can do that. Finally, the other issue that I wanted to bring to your attention is the power supply mix. Actually, there's two more items. One is the enrollment, which this is a report on how many people opted up and opted out. So far, the opt-outs are less than 0.5%, and the opt-ups are probably about 0.215%. We don't take that as indicative of what the final number is going to look like, and if you recall, we are in a pro forma assuming 8% opt-outs for residential, 4% of commercial. I think the numbers are going to be a lot less than that, but we will get there when we get there.
Do we have any indication on the opt-outs? Why are people opting out? Is it
Yeah,
a class
yeah.
of customer or?
The residential customers, nearly 75–80% of them have exactly the same reason, which is they don't like to be put in a different program without them saying so. That's just as simple as that.
Can we send them little glowing tags to remind them they're getting 20% of their power from nuclear?
Eventually, maybe one of those days we will, but right now our focus is on the 99.5% that are still with us. The last thing I want to report on is the power supply mix. And we, for 4 times so far, we send out RFP or RFO asking suppliers to bid or give us prices for the different type of power that we got into, which is bucket 1, bucket 2, and large hydro. And the difference between bucket 1 and bucket 2 is bucket 1 is power, renewable power that you can deliver to California, or either dynamically from out of state or from inside the state, delivered to the grid, the California grid, with the type 2 being the same thing from out of state with certain transmission constraints, and so you would have to bundle it with some resources from the state. Type 2 apparently is becoming incredibly scarce. The last time we went out trying to fill a considerable amount, we only got one supplier that was willing to do it, and we are trying to work with them now on putting together an agreement, and it's becoming really very tough to do that. I think we need to get ahead of this and do it quickly, so we will be coming back to the executive committee to talk about whether we want to continue with this 25% type 1, 25% type 2, or do something different. Obviously, that will take a little time to put together. At the same time, I will be talking to our folks on the marketing side to begin finding a way to make sure that when we market our products, we begin to shift away from this 50-50 and do something different in case we need to get away from the type 2 power. But we'll take a few months and work this out, and hopefully before 2018, we'll be able to put something together that you all be happy with. With that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I have a bunch of attachments to it. I hope you had a chance to look at them. These are just the various letters that we sent to all the different customers that do have exceptions.
Thank you, Mr. Habashi. So let me start with, I'll do questions, and then we'll do comments from the public, and then more questions or comments from us. So do we have any questions for Mr. Habashi to start from the board? Director Ulu, please.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a question for you, Tom, or maybe Ms. Leonard. And I've received from a couple residents the postcard or the post-start notifications. Will it be a postcard again?
Yeah, I believe so. It's the same one that, it's a really large postcard.
Yes, yeah. I'm assuming it's going to look exceedingly like the first 2 postcards, except for it'll state it already started as opposed to it will start. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That was my question. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, so let me open the public comments for this. I have one speaker card. If you'd like to speak on this, please fill out a card and give it to Andrea, the clerk. So let me call up Richard Fancher. So you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Last month I spoke to you about Smart Rate, and I sent you all a letter that was attached to the expanded agenda package. Those in the audience, if you have the agenda package, it's on page 1 and 25. You have a pretty big agenda package. I have copies available if people would like to see it. But so let me summarize. A Green Start has greater costs for thousands of your potential PG&E customers. My estimate is 8,000. You can't match Smart Rate. The CEO just told you that. The problem is not that you aren't matching Smart Rate. The problem is that you are misleading your customers. You can and should change that. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Staff must not have been aware of Smart Rate. They would not have proceeded as they did, knowing that their marketing materials would be wrong for thousands of your potential customers. At least, I hope they wouldn't do that. They haven't said they were unaware. Ask them. That would explain almost everything that's happened. In the rush to roll out, which item 6 tonight seeks to accelerate, I hope nothing else this big has been missed. My letter to you has 4 specific steps you should take to right this mistake. I know it's late in the process, but take the time to do it right. Our community institutions are fragile and under stress these days. Exercise your integrity, move Silicon Valley Clean Energy past this, and keep the community's trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have any questions for the speaker? Director Miller.
So we sent a letter to every Smart Rate customer. Does that not put the issue to bed for you?
No, it didn't.
That seemed more than what you asked for, because those are the people that are directly and specifically affected that could have been confused by our marketing material, for which they're going to have to make a decision.
The letter is not very informative. The information that's available to us now shows that the vast majority of your Smart Rate customers will be less expensive with PG&E than with you, number one. Number two, the letter never even suggests that your rates would be higher than theirs. Your letter says that the Smart Rate plus minuses may end up increasing or reducing their bill. It does not make a statement comparison between you and PG&E.
But it does inform.
Besides which,
But it does
one more
inform.
thing is-
But it does inform the Smart Rate customer that we're unable to offer that program, and that they would have to compare their savings on Smart Rate versus what our program would be, right?
Yeah, probably. There's one sentence in the 2-page letter that's crammed with all sorts of marketing boilerplate that says your prices might be lower or upper. It's in my letter. I actually quoted that sentence. That's the only indication whatsoever that that Smart Rate is lower.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions for the speaker? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Francher. So I have another speaker card for this item. Tara Martin-Milius, please.
I may be speaking on the wrong item, but the one thing I would ask of all of you as the leaders of this and setting policy is that you consider bucket 3 as part of your purchase potential for green energy and incentivize the green energy production elsewhere as well as here. So I'm talking about the unbundled RECs, of course. So I think we need to continue to push, and I think that will also help relieve some of the pressure on the bucket 2 that was indicated here earlier too. So I'm hoping that you will be open to that and consider that, because I think we need we're committed here. Other areas need the reinforcement of investment, I believe. And so it will help our bottom line, but it would also help other areas that need that kind of incentivization to develop a more robust clean energy area. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, and that's all the speaker cards I have for item number 3. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of this item and move to questions or comments from the directors. Director Miller, please.
Just, I don't know if staff has the numbers. Do we know how many solar letters were sent out and how many letters were sent out for those that were on the smart rate?
14,000.
I don't know the exact number of the letters that were sent out, but perhaps I can get either Alan or Don to step forward if you know the number.
14,000 solar in 3 batches.
14,000 solar.
Yeah, for the smart rate, we have 10,000 smart rate customers, and we send it only to those who are in about 1,000.
One batch.
Actually, it was about 2,400, I think, because it's only for phase 1.
Okay.
Specific just opt out.
So
we
her
have-
response was not on tapes. You might want to repeat it just in
Sure.
case we need it.
For the smart rate customers, we send somewhere between 24 to 2,500. Those are the customers who are on smart rate and also are in phase 1. For the solar customers, we send it in 3 batches. We got about 13 to 14,000 customers on the NEM program, the net energy metering, and we send that in 3 batches for all 14,000.
So we have about 10,000 that are on the smart rate, so you can update your 8,000 number to 10,000. How many total customers do we have?
Roughly 250,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next, Chair Emeritus Sinks, please.
Thank you. You know, I do appreciate the speaker's comment last meeting. I think that this letter does a fairly comprehensive job of explaining what we are and what we're doing. And there's a sentence here that says, however, at this time, and this part is underlined, SVCE does not offer an equivalent smart rate program. You know, making it clear that if you are seeing a big advantage there, perhaps, you know, if you really are wedded to the smart rate program, sorry, we can't help you. That might be a reason for a customer to opt out, but I think the letter does a good job of, you know, explaining in some detail to customers that are a little more energy savvy what we're about, right? There's more, there's language here that's not on the postcard, I think, that's helpful in deepening those who have taken the time to, say, sign up for a demand management program, as I have with PG&E. I think will appreciate receiving this letter. So I thank the staff for doing so.
Thank you. And I just want to make one quick comment that the notification is supposed to address the general. It's a general notification for all the customers. For all the exceptions, we went to a great length in making sure that those who have exceptions are receiving letters that are very specific and explains everything that needed to be explained.
One more question. I note that PG&E has announced that they're going to flatten out their pricing, right? And
They are in a pilot program.
bring up pricing for those who have lower energy bills. Is that correct?
Yeah, as I understand it, is they are engaging now in a pilot program to do time of use rates and to do it in a way to reflect today's cost of power during what used to be peak hours but no longer are peak hours because of the abundance of solar generation. And eventually, comes 2019, they will default everybody into the time of use. So everybody, all the customers will go into time of use rates as it will be structured then.
Okay. So we have an opportunity months from now, next year, and beyond to consider our pricing in light of the changes that they're bringing to the party.
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Schmidt?
Let's try it again.
I assume we want to offer a smart rate program.
Turn the white light off or the red light off.
So that,
So it's off.
I'll try this again. I can speak loudly.
No.
I have to speak into a microphone or it won't be on the thing.
I assume we want to offer a smart rate program, and it sounds like we can't do that until PG&E gives us real-time data.
That's correct,
Is there any-
given the way it's structured today.
Is there any ETA for that, or do we know if they're going to make that available to us at some point?
To be quite frank, it wasn't exactly on the top of the list of things that we needed to deal with immediately. But this, along with a host of other programs, are being now considered by staff, now that we have staff. And hopefully by July, no later than August, we'll be able to come back and say, here's a number of programs that we have considered. Here's on the top of our list that would make sense for everyone, and bring some recommendation forward.
Okay, thank you. I see, let's go with Director Craig.
No, thanks.
All right, Director,
My question was already asked.
Director Bruins?
Yeah, so I was going to comment. So, Mr. Fancher, I do appreciate, particularly as a Los Altos City Council member, I do appreciate that you raised this. I do believe that staff's response is appropriately sized for the magnitude of the situation that we have. I happen to have hosted a meeting with maybe close to a dozen of Los Altos residents talking about clean energy. A lot of it was our seniors in our community who had some concerns when they heard, saw the postcard and not understanding it. But one of the gentlemen in there actually brought his letter because he is a smart rate user, and he actually bent over backwards saying how much he appreciated in getting that letter. I did poll this little group in terms of, without any information other than what they've heard through Nextdoor, what have you, how many were inclined to opt out, and there was these, kind of hesitation. And then when we were done, and I asked the same question, I actually had one resident who said she would opt out, and it was interesting because her rationale was she was going through a situation with Comcast, and she doesn't trust utilities because they said something about her rate, and then they, doubled her charge sometime later. But everybody else was very enthusiastic. And again, it's one data point, but the letter seemed to have been very effective because this gentleman was planning to come to this meeting, and then he checked his mailbox before he arrived, and he decided he didn't have a question any longer. Because the letter did meet the need. So I think we're okay there. And again, I think when we look at the number of customers who are on Smart Rate, I would hope that we will continue, that we will maintain that distribution list. And so in terms of trying to respond to it right now, I agree it's not the highest priority, but I would hope that we would hold on to that list. So if these customers do opt out, which every right they have to do that when we have something, and whether it's a smart rate equivalent or something else, as you said, a menu of different items, that they have another opportunity to opt back in.
Of course.
Thank you. If we only lose one customer to Comcast, that'll be good. Director Givens?
Yes, most of my comments have been made. I did think that the comments made by Mr. Fancher last week were very informative for me and very helpful. And I thought that the information that staff provided in the packet tonight was very, very helpful. I thought it was very clear. And I was just compliment that we addressed an important need. And going forward, I think it'll help us with the next rollout.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? You can discuss if you like, Director Miller.
Yeah, I was limiting to questions.
Okay.
So in the discussion part, I am wondering, on the back of our mailer, we've got 47 different items and the print gets pretty small. Shouldn't there be something in there that says customers that are currently members of PG&E's, demand management programs, there's no such equivalent at Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and your mileage may vary or something like that? Shouldn't we, if we put it on the back of the card, then the complaints of, we haven't let the customers know. even though we've sent them a separate letter, we sort of just negate that whole thing. And there's a whole bunch of disclaimers on the back anyway. So in a future mailing, couldn't we update the back to include something about the demand management programs that we don't offer? I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
I'm hesitating to answer because if we take one of the exception programs, whether that to be the smart rate or the NIM or the SVCE, or any of the other exceptions that we have gone out and drafted a letter specifically to address it and try to put that on the notification, it's probably going to be a bit long. So I'm hesitating just to put all the exceptions on the notification. I'd rather just have the notification be for the general than for all the exceptions. We can go out there and do a specific letter for those customers.
I guess two concerns come to mind on it, which are for the general notifications, we're sending out 4. So, I mean, you could miss all 4 or choose to throw all 4 away because they look identical and you think you've gotten the same junk mail 4 times. But in this case, we've only sent 1 letter. You know, of those 2,500 letters, how many of them really got opened? I know of 2. But I don't know. Do we send the letter again post-enrollment? Or do we find the people who are on one of those structured things who didn't opt out and then send them a letter, right away after the date goes to say, hey, we noticed you didn't opt out. Realize we don't have the program that you used to be on and you'll be on the regular program now? I just don't want to, if there's 10,000 people, or 10,000 households, it's not 10,000 people, 10,000 households, that just seems like a lot of people. What happens if they miss it? What do we do to make sure they're okay?
Let's see what Director Eula says.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Tom, I hear you that there's enough on the card already. However, the RESBCT, there's just a few people, it's just governmental agencies, really, so I don't think that even comes into the play. For the NEM customers, you mailed a letter to us all already, and I brought mine today. I picked it up. Literally, as I was driving here, I got the mail, and I showed it to Ms. Leonard and said, what is this? So she could tell me without me even opening it. But in fact, for the future rollouts, I think to adding, or rollout, whatever the case may be, I think adding a line about the smart rate would be worthwhile to the card, because in fact, it right away states that your